The series opens with the boys gathered around a basement table, playing a tense Dungeons and Dragons campaign. The stakes are high in their game, and Mike delivers the line, "Something is coming, something hungry for blood, the Demogorgon." In the moment, it's simply a dramatic piece of roleplay meant to pressure Will into making a decision in the game, but the show uses this as direct foreshadowing. Within hours of that fictional announcement, Will Byers is attacked and taken by an actual creature the kids will later call the Demogorgon. This parallel isn't accidental. The writers deliberately mirrored the game's monster with the real threat to bridge fantasy and reality. The use of D&D terminology gives the boys and the audience a framework to understand something too alien to describe otherwise. By introducing the Demogorgon through the safe, familiar lens of a tabletop game, the show makes its later real-world appearance both shocking and instantly recognizable. That same opening episode layers in another early setup. The boys are in the school's AV club room with Mr. Clark testing his ham radio. They're surprised by how far the signal can reach, joking about how they might be able to contact people much farther away than expected. This moment, while seemingly lighthearted, is a calculated piece of foreshadowing. The narrative returns to this concept later when Eleven uses the school's large radio system to extend her psychic reach into the void. Through it, she communicates with Will and confirms he's alive, trapped in the Upside Down. The earlier casual remark about the radio's range directly ties into this pivotal scene. The technology's unusual reach, combined with Eleven's abilities, allows contact farther away than they ever thought. Without the setup, the later scene would feel convenient. Instead, the groundwork makes it feel earned. Another example of predictive storytelling in Season 1 comes from Sheriff Hopper's early warning about Hawkins' quarry. While discussing the possibility of finding Will's body there, Hopper explains to his deputies that falling from the quarry's cliff would be fatal, even with water below. The drop is too high, and the lake's depth wouldn't prevent serious injury or death. Later in the season, this warning plays out almost exactly when Mike, cornered by bullies, chooses to jump from that same cliff rather than face them. In that moment, the earlier conversation echoes in the audience's mind. This is a leap that should kill him. But Eleven intervenes, freezing his fall in midair and pulling him back to safety. The foreshadowing works on two levels. It establishes the life-or-death nature of the quarry, and it heightens the tension in the rescue scene. The interplay between the boys' game and their real lives surfaces again when the show mirrors an early D&D scenario. In one session, the party decides to split up to cover more ground. The choice backfires when the separated characters are picked off by trolls one after another. It's a lesson in the danger of division within the group. Later in the real world, the friends are similarly forced apart. Lucas heads off on his own reconnaissance. Dustin seeks help from Mr. Clark, and Mike works with Eleven. Each ends up in their own form of danger, reflecting the vulnerability they experienced in their game. This narrative technique turns what initially appears to be harmless gameplay into a rehearsal for actual events, reinforcing the thematic warning that separation invites greater risk. Season 2 opens the door to more layered forms of foreshadowing, and one of the clearest examples comes from another D&D exchange. During a campaign, Will suggests that to beat a powerful enemy, the wizards may need to use a fireball spell. In the fantasy context, this is standard game logic, but the writers embed it as a clue. In the season finale, Joyce, Jonathan, and Mike use space heaters and heated irons to force the mind flayer out of Will's body. The fire serves the same function as the in-game spell, driving out an enemy that can't be fought directly. The precision of the parallel is deliberate, turning a throwaway gaming comment into a subtle promise about the season's climax. This pattern extends back to the Season 1 finale, where the Thessal Hydra appears in the boys' game as their next big adversary. The many-headed monster never appears exactly as described in Hawkins, but the reference foreshadows the massive, multi-limbed threats to come. Season 2's Shadow Monster, later named the Mind Flayer, extends tendrils across Hawkins, infecting hosts and spreading influence in multiple directions, much like the heads of the Thessal Hydra. The choice of that specific monster in the game primes the audience for the escalation in scale and complexity that the next season will bring. The writers also use seemingly unrelated, light-hearted scenes for predictive purposes. In Season 2's first episode, the boys are at the arcade playing Dragon's Lair, an animated game where the player rescues Princess Daphne from danger. Dustin fails the challenge, prompting Lucas to claim, "Princess Daphne is still mine." While this appears to be playful competition, it mirrors the romantic subplot that unfolds later in the season. Lucas is the one who develops a successful relationship with Max, winning her over in much the same way a player might win the game's princess. It's a smaller, more personal example of foreshadowing, but it shows the technique isn't limited to supernatural threats. Not all predictions come from the kids' games. In Season 2, Murray Bauman delivers what seems like a typical paranoid outburst, warning that the Russians might someday infiltrate Hawkins. His theory is brushed off at the time, but in Season 3, it becomes reality. Beneath Starcourt Mall, a hidden Russian base operates in secret, staffed with scientists and soldiers working to reopen a gate to the Upside Down. Their project includes holding a live Demogorgon captive. Murray's wild conspiracy serves as early groundwork for this later reveal, and the payoff is stronger because the seed was planted a full season earlier. During the group's infiltration of the Russian base in Season 3, Erica Sinclair makes a sharp observation. She notices a large reinforced cage and comments on the size of whatever it contained. While this moment is played with her characteristic confidence and humor, it functions as a warning to the audience. Later, it's revealed that the Russians have indeed captured or bred a full-size Demogorgon. Her offhand remark becomes another case where small dialogue details build toward a later reveal. By the time Season 4 arrives, the show has established a pattern of using the Hellfire Club's D&D campaigns as a narrative map. In their opening game, the final boss they face is Vecna, a legendary lich and dark sorcerer in the game's lore. This is not a loose parallel. The season's actual villain is named Vecna and shares key traits with his tabletop counterpart. Both are powerful, calculating, and able to kill from a distance by targeting the mind. The D&D match becomes a direct preview of the season's primary conflict, signaling to the audience, especially those familiar with the game, that this will be a battle unlike any before. The way these predictions link together shows the writer's commitment to layered storytelling. The opening D&D Demogorgon sets the precedent. Imaginary threats can and will become real. The ham radio's unexpected range reinforces the idea that small details will matter later. And Hopper's quarry warning establishes that even environmental background information might be relevant in a future scene. Each of these moments primes the audience to watch closely, teaching them that casual details can carry significant weight. Once the show moves into Season 2, the Fireball parallel and the Thessal Hydra reference continue this education. The audience learns to look for connections between in-game events and real-world outcomes. The Dragon's Lair scene expands the pattern to personal relationships, proving the predictive structure applies beyond life-or-death situations. Murray's Russian theory pushes it even further, showing that comedic side characters can still deliver important clues. Season 3 builds on this structure by using Erica's cage comment to foreshadow a creature reveal. This demonstrates that even a quick line in the middle of an action sequence can serve as setup for a later twist. Finally, Season 4's Hellfire Club match with Vecna functions as both the most direct and the most elaborate form of this technique. Here, the writers don't just foreshadow. They openly introduce the villain's name and style before the audience ever sees him in the real world. Taken together, these examples show that Stranger Things embeds predictions into its plot using three main methods: in-universe games that parallel future events, casual remarks that later gain importance, and environmental or background details that set up later action. The interplay between fantasy and reality is key. D&D provides a language for the kids to understand their world, and the audience learns to translate that language into real-world stakes. Jokes and side comments give way to major plot points, rewarding attentive viewers. Physical settings and props, like the quarry cliff, the ham radio, or the large cage, become signposts for later developments. The strength of this approach is in how naturally these predictions are woven into the story. None of them are presented as obvious hints at the time. The ham radio scene plays as a moment of curiosity, not a setup. Hopper's quarry warning is procedural dialogue in a police investigation, not a flashing neon sign. The Dragon's Lair exchange is casual banter between friends, not a coded message about future romance. This subtlety keeps the audience engaged without making the show predictable. Another important factor is that the predictions often come from the kids' own experiences and interests. Because the boys view the world through the lens of D&D, the show can safely introduce real threats as game elements without breaking immersion. When those threats later manifest in Hawkins, the audience accepts the connection because it feels organic to the character's worldview. This technique also allows the writers to foreshadow multiple plot lines at once. An in-game monster might hint at a supernatural enemy while also thematically preparing the group for the teamwork required to defeat it. The Russian subplot is a good example of how predictions can be layered over time. Murray's comment in Season 2 plants the idea, but it isn't immediately relevant. In Season 3, the Russian base under Starcourt Mall becomes a central plot element. In Season 4, the Russian storyline continues with Hopper's imprisonment in a Soviet facility holding Demogorgons. The original prediction expands into a multi-season arc, showing how early seeds can grow into much larger payoffs. Even the smallest predictive beats serve a purpose in building tension. Erica's comment about the size of the cage could have been cut without affecting the immediate plot of Season 3, but its inclusion primes the audience to expect something dangerous. When the Demogorgon is revealed, the moment feels more satisfying because the audience has been anticipating it, even if only subconsciously. This is a hallmark of effective foreshadowing, giving the audience just enough information to recognize the payoff when it arrives, without revealing it outright. The Vecna example in Season 4 is perhaps the most overt prediction in the series, but it still benefits from the established pattern. By this point, the audience has been trained to take the Hellfire Club's campaigns seriously. When Eddie describes Vecna as the ultimate villain in their game, viewers familiar with the show's history understand this is not just an in-game challenge. The previous seasons have built trust in this narrative device, so the audience accepts that the game will again reflect reality. Across all 4 seasons, the use of foreshadowing through these methods creates a cohesive storytelling rhythm. Every setup, whether it's a single line of dialogue, a game detail, or an environmental warning, serves the dual purpose of enriching the current scene and preparing for a future one. This gives Stranger Things a sense of interconnection. Events in Hawkins aren't random, but part of a larger, carefully constructed web. There's always more hidden beneath the surface. So, don't stop here. Click the next video on your screen to uncover even more details you might have missed.